If you're into tech and computing, then there's a good chance that you've taken a look at some mechanical keyboards. There are a few custom mechanical keyboards floating around the studio, but up until today, we've never had the chance to actually go ahead and 3D print our own custom case, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense because we have an awful lot of 3D printers that we can go ahead and do something like this. And to help us out with this build, the guys over at Awekeys have sent us their Wild Ice all-metal keycaps, along with something a little bit extra. We're going to check this out here in a bit, but first we need to find the right case. When it comes to custom mechanical keyboards, there are a lot of options online you could choose from, and with 3D printing, it's no different. There are a lot of different case styles and variations that you could go with. Now, I'm a fan of the 60 or 65% keyboard, so for today's build, we're going to be going for a 60% keyboard case. For this, we don't want to print just a square basic keyboard case for two reasons. One, we want to show off the capabilities of 3D printing, and the second reason being the Wild Ice keycap set needs a little bit more flair. So we're going to take this more Art Deco style from the user Roger Arbogast on printables and throw it into the Anycubic Cobra S1. Since we're using 3D printing, we have a few more steps that we have to go through. It's not like ordering a case online and then throwing on your PCB and keycaps. Before we can use this, we need to remove all the supports and then throw in a little bit of extra work. Since we're limited by the size of our build plate, what we needed to do was split the case down the center and then print it vertically. It's not as daunting as it may seem, and there's a really easy solution where we don't have to worry about board flex or your case bending in half. To get our case ready for everything else, we need to go ahead and do a little bit of assembly. What we have here is a few of these small pegs to go into these insert holes to make sure that everything's lined up. After that, I went ahead and printed a few 5mm squares that will drop on the bottom of the plate. We'll go ahead and glue these to the bottom of the keyboard case. That way it has a little bit more stability and it's not just connected here at the split. We're going to go ahead and put some paint on this case, but there's absolutely no way I'm taking that camera anywhere near spray paint. So I'll be right back. We still have a bit more to do on this project, but before we continue, let's take a second to talk about the sponsor of today's video, PCBWay. Whether you're a hobbyist looking for help with your next project or you're a designer who needs help with manufacturing, PCBWay is the premier provider for on-demand manufacturing. With services like custom PCB manufacturing, sheet metal fabrication, CNC machining, and even 3D printing, PCBWay has everything you need for your next project. With an easy-to-use website, simply drop your project files and select the options you are looking for, and once you're ready, send your project off for review. And one of my favorite options has to be their metal 3D printing, something you can't easily do at home with options like aluminum, stainless steel, and titanium 3D printing. So if you're looking for help getting your next project or product off the ground, make sure to check out PCBWay today at PCBWay.com. Now that we're back, we have our case here painted a nice antique gold. It's not too shiny and it's not too matte. I know that the theme of the Awekeys Wild Ice set is more of a cold or tundric theme, but we have something a little different in mind. That's one of the cool things about custom mechanical keyboards is even though we have a theme to this keycap set, we could put our own spin on it and kind of do our own thing. In the studio, we have a few different DZ60 PCBs filled up with Zelio V2 switches, so that's what we're going to be using today. Since I've already assembled several of these boards in the past, I have to apologize. We won't be doing any fancy soldering montage or B-roll today. Instead, we're just going to take our PCB, put some case foam into our case, and then drop it in. For our case foam, we're not going to use anything fancy. Instead, we're just going to use some of the leftover packaging material that we had from one of our previous laser engraver reviews. Once we have a little bit of the case foam in the case, we'll just use some smaller self-tapping screws and go ahead and mount the PCB. Now that we have our PCB mounted, we just have one more thing that I want to do before we start putting on our keycaps. When I first approached this build, I had a very specific style in mind. Lately, I've been watching a lot of Stargate Atlantis, and I kind of wanted to do something in that theme. So we're going for a more regal Atlantean looking build rather than a cold tundra icy build. And with just a little bit more paint, it looks like things are finally starting to come together how I imagined. What's really cool about 3D printing is this is something that you can't really go online and just buy pre-made. So everything like this that's done is going to be 100% custom to each person. Now we're getting to the fun part where we finally get to open up the Awekeys Wild Eyes all metal keycap set. When I first saw the Mysterio Glacial metal keycap set, I knew that this was the theme that I wanted to go with. So I'm really excited to see how these look when thrown on top of this keyboard. These definitely have their own flair to them, and I'm really interested to see how the metal keycaps turn out. Don't forget we have something a little special once we get all these keycaps on here. This keyboard is really close to what I originally had planned when I first saw this keycap set. And these keys are a lot heavier than you would initially think, which is great for people who really love their heavier keyboards. The last thing we need to do before we're done with this build is open up this Lords of Wild Ice mystery box and see what keycap we have inside. This is a lot cooler than I expected, and it looks like we ended up with Tyson, the exiled chief. So we'll go ahead and throw this on top the PCB as well. Overall, I have to say this was a really fun project, and I really like the way that it turned out. I'll make sure that I have all the links for everything here, including the keycap set, in the description. Looking at this, there are a few things that I would have done differently. One of those things is instead of printing this like a normal 3D print, I would have printed the case with 100% infill. This would have dramatically improved the sound and experience of the keyboard itself. One other thing that I probably would have done is spent a little bit more time on the paint, maybe a little bit of weathering on the edges with a protective clear coat to make sure we're not putting our hands directly on the paint and rubbing it off over time. With that said, I'm really happy with the way this turned out, and it's been fun to take some time to do a project as compared to some of the other things we do. If you're interested in doing something like this, again, I'll have all the links in the description.